Electricast.
When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
I know every operating system like the back of my hand.
I have 25 years of experience and have worked with several people from your company. I've been recognized for my passion. My team is everything.
LinkedIn delivers candidates who rise above the rest with an up-to-date view into shared connections, skills, and interests you won't find anywhere else. See why 86% of small businesses who post a job on LinkedIn get a qualified candidate within a day. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/achieve. LinkedIn, your next great hire is here.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet. And today I want to name what I'm hoping, as you've been listening the last few weeks, that some things have started to shift or have already changed for you. And you might not have put words to it yet, but you can feel it. You're not confused anymore about why certain days cost more than others. You're not guessing, you're noticing. You're noticing when something comes in and it takes a little more than it should. You're noticing how your energy feels after you say yes. And you've already started to notice the after effects in real time now, not hours later when it's already, the day's already come and gone. And that really matters because it's not because you lack self-awareness around how your decision process is, how you run your day, use your time. It's the energy piece, right? It's not that you lack self-awareness around that. You already have that self-awareness and you are starting to see the pattern now. Because you can now feel when your energy shifts, you can feel when your focus starts to thin, you can feel when something pulls more than it gives, even if on the surface it looks reasonable, that whatever that ask is, whatever that task that comes across your desk, that it looks easy. And this is the part I want to name clearly because I created this series and it was never about giving you better rules. It wasn't about more discipline and it wasn't about telling you to slow down. What's already happened is way more important than that. What I wanted from this was to help you, which I believe that you've now gained that visibility piece, meaning you can see where access happens. You can feel the cost. You can sense the difference between a clean yes and one that spreads you thin. Awareness has already changed how you listen to yourself. But here's the truth most people don't understand. Awareness alone doesn't protect your energy. It just helps you to see what's happening. And today I want to talk about that. And more importantly, what's next? Because this episode is about integration. It's about the step beyond awareness, the shift that actually holds your energy in place while you keep moving forward. Because clarity, not discipline, is what changes everything. And that's where we're going today. So let me bring you into a day that looks good let's say it looks good on paper. Your day today, it looks good on paper. You planned it out. You've got your meetings set, admin set. You've got whatever projects you're working on. And maybe it's not even a heavy day. It's not jam-packed. It's not chaotic. It's a day you actually feel good about when it starts. And so you sit down, you're already knowing what matters to get done. Your mind's clear. Your momentum is there. You're moving at the pace you trust, the one that feels sharp, capable, and on point. And nothing's pulling at you yet. Nothing feels off or behind. In fact, it's one of those days where you think, okay, this is working. And then the day unfolds, not with anything dramatic, just normal things, right? A message that needs a quick response, a small adjustment someone asks for, a decision you make fast because you can make it fast because that's how your decision process works. And none of it feels disruptive to you. None of it feels like a problem. Each yes feels clean in the moment. And so you keep going. You stay productive. You keep your pace going. You don't lose momentum. But as the day goes on, something starts to happen because now you notice it takes a little longer to drop back into focus after a switch. You notice that you're holding more in your head than you planned for, and you notice that you're still moving, but it's taking more effort to stay sharp. And there's no single moment that you can point to and say, that's where it happened. And that's what makes it confusing, because from the outside looking in, it looks like a good day. But from the inside looking out, it feels like you spent way more energy than you meant to. So by the end of your day, your momentum's technically still there, but you're more aware of how much attention it takes to keep it steady. And you tell yourself what you always tell yourself. It's fine, I'm fine, it was a full day. Telling yourself that tomorrow will feel lighter because you're trying to convince yourself that this was just one of those days. But there's an awareness underneath that explanation now. This didn't come from one bad decision. It didn't come from overworking. It didn't come from saying yes to the wrong thing. It came from the way the day was run, from a system that makes decisions quickly, but doesn't account for how many times your energy gets pulled in different directions along the way. And that's the part you're starting to see now. Not one moment, not one yes, but the pattern underneath all of them. And if this all feels familiar, if you could feel yourself nodding because you've lived some version of it more times than you can count, then this is where today's conversation pulls it all together, because what you're noticing now isn't new effort. It's not new discipline. It's not another thing to fix. It's awareness that finally has somewhere to go. You can see the pattern now. You can feel the drain sooner. But up until this point, you haven't had a way to translate that awareness into something that actually protects you while you're still moving. And that's what today's about. So here's what we're going to unpack together. And as you hear each part, I want you to really notice where you recognize yourself before you analyze it. That recognition matters more than understanding it perfectly. So first, we're going to look at why awareness alone never fully stops the drain, why noticing your yes, noticing the cost, and noticing the after effects helps you see what's happening, but it doesn't actually change how much energy you have at the end of the day. Not because awareness is useless or not important, but because awareness by itself doesn't change what gets access to your energy in real time. Then we're going to break down how access decisions, not your workload, are shaping your energy, and why it's not the amount you're doing that costs you, but the number of small, fast decisions your system makes without checking what they pull from. The quick pivots, the clean yeses that don't feel wrong in the moment, and the tiny adjustments that never register as decisions until later. And finally, we're going to talk about what's been missing all along, the decision lens that explains why everything else felt incomplete, even though you were doing all the right things. This isn't a new rule set. It's not another mindset shift. It's the missing layer that turns awareness into protection without slowing you down, without you saying no to everything or managing yourself all day. This is about integration, taking everything you've already noticed over the last few weeks and turning it into something you can actually use while you're in motion. So if you found yourself thinking, I can see it now, but I still don't know how to stop it in the moment, then hang with me, because this is where everything finally connects. So I want to talk about a belief that you may be operating from, maybe for a very long time now. One that didn't feel like a problem because for most of your life, it actually worked. And it sounds like this. If it fits inside my day, I don't need to stop for it. If I can clear it fast, it's cleaner to just bang it out now. If it barely registers, it doesn't deserve a second thought. You don't even consciously think it. It's just the internal logic that runs underneath how you move. And of course, it makes sense because you're capable, right? You have great work ethic. It's how you're wired. And when something needs attention, you don't hesitate. You size it up in seconds, not to decide if it fits, but to confirm that you can absorb it. You decide and then you move. So when a request comes in that feels easy enough, a quick clarification, a small adjustment, a fast response, you don't experience that moment as a decision. You experience it as flow. Because pausing to question something you already know you can handle feels unnecessary, feels inefficient, and feels like overthinking. And this is where awareness alone hits its limit, because this belief doesn't fail you when things feel heavy. You're very good at noticing those moments. You know when something's too much. You know when to push back on obvious overload. But this belief actually fails you when things feel easy, when something doesn't trip your internal alarm, when it feels clean in the moment, and when it slides in without resistance. Because this belief filters for effort, not energy. It asks, can I handle this? But it never asks, what will this pull from me after I say yes? Or what will it interrupt that actually matters? So even with awareness, even when you can see the pattern, even when you notice the drain sooner, the system keeps running. Not because you're missing insight, not because you're ignoring yourself, but because you've been equating capability with capacity. And that's why awareness alone never fully stops the drain. You learned to pay attention when things start to feel heavy, to intervene when the load becomes too obvious to ignore, like I've been saying, to respond when something crosses a clear line. But no one has ever showed you how energy actually moves, because energy doesn't leak through pressure. It leaks through permission given on autopilot, through moments that feel harmless, through fast decisions that never felt like decisions at all. And that's the belief that's been keeping the pattern alive, even now that you can see it. So once you see the belief that's been running underneath your days, the next question isn't what's wrong with me, it's what is this actually costing me? Because the cost doesn't stop you from functioning. It shows up in much more familiar ways, the kind that are easy to normalize if you're not looking closely. And the first place you might feel it is in how much of you is still available by the end of the day. Not how much you got done, not whether you were productive, but how available you feel internally, meaning how easy is it to think, to decide, to stay present without effort. Your energy doesn't disappear in one obvious moment. It spreads. It moves outward in small increments. A response here, a mental adjustment there, a quick pivot you didn't plan for but handled anyway. And none of those moments felt expensive at the time. They felt easy to make because you move fast, and speed has always been your advantage. You're used to deciding in motion, adjusting on the fly, and trusting yourself to absorb what comes in without breaking stride. But later, when you finally slow down enough to notice, you realize there's less of you available than you expected, especially for the things that actually matter to you. And because there's no single moment to blame, you tell yourself it was just a full day. This is normal when I'm busy, because this is how busy has always worked for you. Fast decisions, quick adjustments, staying responsive without stopping long enough to question the cost. But what you're feeling isn't the result of fullness. It's the result of distribution. Then there's what happens to your focus. It doesn't disappear, it fragments. Your attention gets pulled into more directions than you consciously chose. A quick clarification you're holding in the back of your mind, a thread you need to come back to later, a decision you already made but you haven't fully closed internally. You don't lose focus, it just gets distributed across more threads than you intended to open. So when it's finally time to do the work that matters most, it takes longer to settle in because your focus has already been redirected multiple times without being fully released. And this can also affect your pace because although your momentum doesn't stop, you keep moving, you keep reducing, you keep showing up at the level you expect from yourself. Sustaining that pace starts requiring more internal effort. Momentum begins to feel managed instead of fluid. You compensate by pushing harder, and you use more energy to hold the same speed you used to maintain with ease. And because being capable is your default mode, you don't immediately notice the extra fuel it's costing you until you realize that days that used to feel clean now feel heavier to maintain. And what's happening is you're using more energy to get the same results. And then there's the cost that shows up in how you decide. Because when your energy is being redirected without intention, speed starts replacing discernment. You answer before checking in with yourself first, what you can actually handle. You respond before sensing how this will affect your focus later. You say yes before noticing what you're trading for that yes, because remember, with every yes, there's a trade. And it's not because you're careless, but because reflex keeps things moving, and a quick yes doesn't interrupt your flow. You tell yourself that pausing to check alignment would require a moment of stillness, and when you're moving fast, that pause feels unnecessary. So decisions get made quickly, but they don't always feel right. They stay open in the background, they pull on your attention later, and they keep redirecting your energy long after the moment has passed. And this is why the pattern keeps repeating, even with awareness. You see it now, you recognize it sooner, but your system is still allocating energy by default. So here's the part I want you to really let land. Your energy isn't being taken away from you by anyone else or anything else. You are giving it away automatically in moments that never feel big enough to question. And until access becomes intentional, your energy will keep spreading in ways that feel normal, even when the cost keeps showing up later. This isn't about doing less or slowing down. It's about realizing that decisions happen before effort at the exact point where your energy is moving. You see, there's a quiet want that sits underneath how you move through your days, and you don't usually say it out loud because on the surface, everything looks fine. You're functioning, you're producing, you're keeping things moving, but inside, you know what you're craving isn't more output or better discipline. What you want is to feel with yourself as the day unfolds, meaning you want energy that doesn't slip away in pieces, energy that's still there when the day is done. Not because you slowed down, not because you pulled back, but because it wasn't scattered across things that didn't deserve its attention. You want your decisions to feel finished when you make them, not decisions that echo later, and not yeses that stay open in the back of your mind, tugging at your attention. And to be able to answer, respond, and decide, and then return fully to what you were doing without carrying residue from the moment. And to be able to focus without effort. The kind where you don't have to re-enter yourself every time you sit back down to do something, where your attention doesn't feel split across invisible threads you never meant to open, and momentum that moves cleanly, that doesn't require recovery later, and that doesn't ask you to compensate, push harder, or use extra fuel just to stay steady. And underneath all of that, you want to trust your pace, to feel calm inside your speed, confident inside how quickly you move without wondering what it's costing you behind the scenes, so that your days feel whole when they're done, not just successful on paper, not just productive, but aligned where your energy stays with you, your decisions feel complete, your momentum supports you instead of pulling from you. And wanting that doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means that you're ready for your energy to work with you, not to trail behind you trying to catch up. And this is where the change begins, not on the outside, but inside of you. I always say that the biggest transformations that anyone can experience are the ones that begin from the inside out. And it's not because you learn something new. It's not because you're told what to do, but because something finally clicks. And you finally realize it wasn't that you're doing things all wrong. It's not that you're not aware enough. It's that you were trying to manage your yeses instead of noticing what they were letting through. That's the part that no one really sees, right? Because all this time, you probably thought the work was about control, right? About controlling everything, knowing the process, but keeping things moving fast enough that it doesn't slow down your momentum, fast enough that you get things done quickly and cleanly, effectively using your time. But now I think what you're starting to see is that none of that ever really touched the real issue when you started to feel energy drain. The issue wasn't how much you were saying yes to. It was what was gaining access to you without being questioned. And once you see that, then that's when the shift can begin, because that's when you'll start noticing the moments before your response forms, the tiny pauses that you never paid attention to before, those split-second moments where something enters your awareness, where you usually just move, and for the first time, you don't immediately absorb it. And it's not because you're hesitating or because you're unsure, but because you're finally aware of where your energy actually goes, and you want to protect your energy. You realize how often you've been deciding from speed, not because you're careless, but because speed has always worked for you. You're good at responding quickly. You're good at handling things in real time. You're good at adjusting on the fly. And now, instead of asking, can I handle this? You start feeling into a different question altogether. And that's, does this belong here? Not morally, not emotionally, but energetically. And that's the shift. Because the moment you ask that, even in your mind, everything changes. You don't feel pulled. You don't feel pressured. You don't feel like you're bracing yourself. You just know. And you start to realize that when things come across your plate, moments where you would normally respond to without thinking, you let yourself feel whether it's right before you say yes. And sometimes the answer will be yes. Maybe most times it'll be yes. And it will feel right. It will be clean. You'll feel yourself stepping into it fully with no drag, no second guessing, and no residue afterwards. Sometimes the answer will be not right now. And nothing falls apart when you realize that. There's no urgency spikes, no guilt creeps in, just clarity, because you understand what's needed, where your focus is needed. And sometimes the answer will be no, and that's okay. Not because it's wrong, but because you can feel how it would pull you away from what matters more. And None of this slows you down. In fact, you feel steadier, more contained, like yourself. Your focus doesn't splinter as easily. Your momentum feels smoother, less forced. Your pace feels supported from the inside, not propped up by effort. You stop spending energy cleaning up after decisions you never meant to make. You stop managing the mental residue, the re-entry, the weight that used to show up later for no obvious reason. And that's when it really lands, because you'll finally realize that you don't need more rules. You don't need to override who you are. You only need a way of deciding that moves at the same speed you do, but one that actually protects what matters. And that's why having a filter like the Yes Reset method feels like relief, because it supports the way you already move instead of asking you to manage yourself differently, because you're not becoming someone else. You're not forcing yourself into a smaller life. You're not holding yourself back. You're finally giving your energy a structure that matches your capacity. So instead of leaking out through default access, your energy starts staying with you, with what matters, with what moves you forward, with what you consciously choose. And that's when you begin to understand why everything else felt incomplete, because it's not about saying no more. It's about saying yes better from clarity at the level where your energy actually moves, where you don't need to force it because it feels like you. So I want you to take a moment to notice something right now that's happening inside of you. Again, like if you've been listening through this series, you're starting to feel things start to shift. You're starting to see where your yeses have been on reflex. You're understanding how it's costing you and your energy, how that's being, how your energy is being affected. You might be noticing where you catch access before the cost shows up, right? That split second where something enters your awareness, and instead of moving immediately, you register it. You may notice that certain yeses don't feel automatic anymore, right? Things that you used to say yes to on the fly just because you wanted to keep things moving, you didn't want to interrupt your flow. You might actually notice that those yeses don't feel automatic anymore. You may even feel yourself hesitating, not from doubt, but from discernment. That internal check-in point wasn't there for you before. And you might already sense that something shifted. And it's not your pace, it's not your ambition, it's not your capability. It's just the way you're relating to your decisions. And as you sit with that, I want you to ask yourself, what would change if your decisions were designed instead of made on the fly? And notice what comes up for you and allow yourself to be curious and not let your mind explain it away. So here's what I want you to remember. As a high-achieving woman, you don't say yes or make decisions because someone tells you to. You make decisions when something finally clicks, when you see yourself clearly enough to recognize the pattern that's been running the show, and the moment you're ready to shift it. And if today's episode helped something snap into focus for you, if you caught yourself thinking, this is exactly where my energy goes, or this is the moment my yes gets expensive, that really matters, because when your system shows you the pattern, that's your signal that it's time to shift it, that you're ready to shift it. And here's the truth. You can have the best intentions, the strongest work ethic, the deepest self-awareness, but if your decision system isn't built to protect your energy in real time, you'll stay in cycles that don't support you, that don't support your time, that don't support your energy. And that's why the Yes Reset method is so powerful, because it becomes the internal checkpoint that replaces pressure-driven decisions with clarity-driven ones. It's not by slowing you down, but by giving you a decision architecture that supports the way you actually function, so that your yes stays clean, grounded, and energy protective instead of reflexive. And if you're listening now and you're thinking, I want to see what this looks like in my life, I want to understand how this applies to the way I move through my day, then I want to invite you to book a Yes Reset strategy call with me. This is not a sales call. It's a clarity conversation where you and I will sit down. We'll look at the way you're currently making decisions, where your energy's leaking, where your reflexes are overriding your intentions, and where your pace is being shaped by habits that no longer support the way you want to move. We'll identify where your autopilot yes is costing you, and how applying the Yes Reset method can help you create the kind of clean, supported pace you've been wanting, the kind where your yes actually works for you instead of against you. And you'll walk away understanding how your system is operating now, the patterns driving your energy drains, and what shifts will create the clean, aligned pace you want to move at. So if today you felt that internal click, that moment of recognition, then the next step is to book your Yes Reset strategy call with me, and the link to book is in the show notes. Okay, before you go back to your day, I want you to hear this clearly. You're good. You don't need another rule, another system, or another layer of self-management. You don't need to second guess yourself. You already know what you need to know, right? You can feel when something fits. You can sense when something pulls at you. You can tell the difference between momentum that supports you and momentum that costs you. Especially if you've been listening to this entire series, you've started to understand that. And that matters because it means you're no longer operating on guesswork. You don't need to watch yourself constantly. You don't need to slow yourself down to stay steady. You don't need to override who you are to protect what matters. You move fast because that's who you are. You decide quickly because you're capable of doing so. But now you also know how to move and decide in a way that keeps your energy with you. That's the difference. Your clarity is enough. Your awareness is enough. Your ability to feel what's aligned and what isn't is enough. And having that system in place for you that you use as just an internal check-in, a check-in point for you to be able to say, okay, yes, no, not right now. So as you move forward from here, I want you to trust that. I want you to let your days unfold without over-managing them. Let your energy stay where it belongs with you, with what matters, with what you choose. But if you find yourself that you really still are operating at this place where you're aware that you move fast, you're aware that your decisions are quick, you are aware that your energy is being depleted, but you're not necessarily sure where you are making those quick decisions, like the types of things that you're saying yes to, then I want you to click the link in the show notes and book a Yes Reset strategy call with me, and we'll figure that out together. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage behind the scenes of show business spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your hosts for the Candle Power Hour.
You deserve better health care, and so do we all. Medicine in America is a podcast that shares real stories of patients and doctors reshaping the future, because the revolution in care isn't coming, it's already here. Real stories, real change, a better future for healthcare.
Electricast.